24 of the game's most accomplished champions and emerging superstars joining together as the best of the best from the United States take on the top international players outside of Europe.
92 days away, and Matt Kamienski, as always, joins us again in the studio, and he's back, Marco, from overseas where, I don't know if he's behind the Steve Williams Tiger Woods thing, but I have a feeling he might have been.
Welcome back, Matt Kamienski. Good to see you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Cam. It's good to be back. Got back yesterday morning. So.
Were you in the booth? Was it your call to get David Ferrity over to talk to Stevie Williams?
I can't say that was my call.
No, what a shame. How was it? Was it great to get back to the old country and
really
see
good.
what was going on?
Yeah, it was nice I hadn't been back in about 15 months, 16 months, so it was really good to be back and be back home. I mean, that's where I was born, and that's where I started my golf career, working for Jim Cook at the World Series of Golf. So
unbelievable. The World Series of Golf, that was a big tournament. Were you there when Jose Maria Lathabel had that really long 2-iron and he shot about 22 under and won by 15 shots?
That would have been before my time. But my first event would have been Mickelson won, and then the next year, actually, Greg Norman.
Can I tell you a story?
97.
I'll tell you a story about the World Golf, the World
Series
of Golf at Firestone. Years ago, Michael Harwood got a game at the World Series of Golf. It must have been when he came second in the British Open. And it was right about then when You the Man was the big one, right, was going around. Now, Jose Maria Lathabel, he was leading this tournament by 100 shots. The tournament was over. And in the last round, Mike Harwood, who doesn't hit the ball very far, is playing with the Shark. And apparently the first and 10th holes are in vicinity.
Yeah, they're right next to each other. Yeah.
Right. So Jose was about to hit off on the first. So there's a huge crowd. And the Shark just
first
turned up.
First and the 9th are right next to each
other.
other.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Shark had the honour when he was playing with Mike Howard on the 10th hole. And he's gone... big monster drive down the 10th, and some guys yelled out, "You the man!" in the back of the right in the background. You the man! It went ballistic. Anyway, Mike Howard gets up, does his little short swing, and hits his little popcorn drive down the middle, and this same bloke yells out, "And you're playing with the man!" Poor old Hearts.
No.
Poor old Hearts. Just played well in the British Open too, Mike Howard. He's leading up, the senior British Open.
He sure did.
And you're playing with the man.
I reckon he still thinks about that too. Hey, Matt, we're getting very excited here in Australia, in Melbourne, about the President's Cup. What's the feeling back in the States?
The buzz is starting. There's a lot of stuff around the FedEx Cup, but I mean, really, last week it was good to be home because I was sitting there. I was able to push it, tell our media folk, hey, President's Cup. But I took, as we talked last week, I took a guys from the U.S. media out, and the buzz is starting. And really, last week the play by the internationals was phenomenal. I mean, to see Ricky Fowler the way he played unreal. Love to see him jump up to 11th in the standings now. So I mean, that makes it a little bit easier for Fred if he's looking to pick Ricky. He would be a great draw down here.
Absolutely.
The way he played at the Ryder Cup and in team match play back then in Wales would just be phenomenal to see him down here.
We've also heard that he's very keen, if he gets a gig, to actually play both tournaments either side of the President's Cup, which is fantastic. I mean, when we start hearing stuff like that, it's great for Australia. We're so far away, Matt. I mean, you've just flown back and forth.
Absolutely.
We are so far away. We know we have so much to offer in the way of cities, in the way of golf, and people love the golf here. Sometimes we just feel like we're a little bit too far away. But to hear guys like Ricky Fowler, to see Dustin Johnson, this Bubba Watson, we know Tiger's going to play the Australian Open again.
Yep.
For those guys, the best in the world, and guys who live in America, and we know Americans don't travel that much. For them to actually travel all the way down here and play in our tournaments, it just gives our golfing nation, our golf, it just gives a big kick along, and we're so wrapped for that. So I'm really hoping Ricky Fowler plays great this week and plays fantastic in the FedEx Cup. Talking about that, we've got the standings in front of us, and it looks like it's I'll just read out Jason Day, Adam Scott are 1 and 2. Charles Schwartzel, KJ Choi, number 4. Can't wait for KJ to get to Melbourne. KT Kim, Latif Goosen, Ernie Els, Louis Oosthuizen, Tim Clark, who won't be playing. He's number 9.
Yep.
And Wai Yang, which means Yo Ishikawa, with Tim Clark, he would be in that top 10.
Absolutely.
Just outside, Jeff Ogilvy, Robert Allenby. I already hear that Robert Allenby is the captain's pick. I know that doesn't make you happy, but it's true.
Oh, makes me all happy.
Aaron Badley not too far away as well. When is the cutoff for the points? When's that going to finish up?
Automatic qualifiers are after the BMW Championship in the FedEx Cup, so September 18th.
Right, so what have we got? We've basically got the PGA, boys will have a rest, then the FedEx Cup starts. We've got week 1, week 2, BMW's week 3.
Yes, sir.
And then the US Tour Championship, Where's that being played this year? Atlanta again?
Atlanta, yep.
Yeah, back in Atlanta.
Home at East Lake.
Which
Permanent
one?
home there. It's the permanent home there at East Lake.
East Lake.
Yeah.
It's a permanent home there now.
Yeah, the Tour Championship. Yep.
Oh, I might have to.
Presented by Coca-Cola, yeah.
I'm going to see. We go to, I take people to Augusta every year, chasingbirdies.com.au if you're keen to come. I might have a look and see if we can. I might talk to you actually, see if you can get us on East Lake, and perhaps where they're playing this week, Atlanta Athletic Club, on the way to Augusta in a couple of years' time.
Great golf course in Atlanta.
Oh, how good do they look on TV?
Yeah.
They look unbelievable.
They're unbelievable.
Hey, tell me about this too. We see Dwarf Bermuda being played in a lot of the courses where the heat's on, and we know there's some beautiful courses. I had to look this week. They're playing on a grass called Ultra Dwarf Bermuda. I mean,
It's a step up.
geez,
It's a step up. It's ultra.
It's a dwarf.
Is it more dwarf or
Dwarf,
what is it?
it's double dwarf Bermuda. I mean, this must be very little. It must be very small. This grass, but it is incredible that the technology that America seems to be leading the way. I mean, we've never heard of this stuff. We've been in Queensland playing on Bermuda greens for a long time, but to get dwarf and then now ultra dwarf. It's incredible what they're doing there.
It's amazing what they're doing. I mean, just with grasses, yeah. What they can do with grass, and
It's a joke.
I'm not an agronomist by any means, but yeah, it is a joke.
Righto. So Tiger.
Hang on. I wanted to ask you, Robert Allenby, you just touched on it quickly. You think he's already a captain's pick?
Yeah, I think he's a pick. Well, we had his caddy Shags on my radio show, Chasing Birdies, in Melbourne. And he told us that he'd been having a few barbecues at Greg's just of recent times, which is
Some nice company.
unusual. And
That's good though. I mean, I know him and Robert has always said to me that he's been in contact with Greg ever since 2009, and
Well, he's been a winner. He was a winner at Royal Melbourne. Knows it like the back of his hand. It makes sense that.
Well, I think what we need is, I think what Greg would like to see is a couple of these other, whether it's Robert or Jeff, get into the top 10,
Yeah.
so then he doesn't have to use a pick on him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to make that decision. Hey, do I pick one or the other, or do I? He needs one of those guys to get in. And I think Jeff's starting to play really well. Robert's playing well.
Yeah.
Jeff had a rough go on Saturday at Firestone. He had a stomach issue that just caused him not to play very well. But then he came back and shot 3 under on the last day. So
I want Jeff in there. I mean, because he's great friends with Adam Scott, and I'm not sure Adam Scott's had too much experience playing Royal Melbourne composite. In fact, Royal Melbourne at all. I'm positive. I don't think Adam's played a tournament there at Royal Melbourne composite. If he has, it might have been just one. But it'd be great because they're such good friends, Ogilvy and Adam Scott, to pair those two together. Because people forget. I mean, it's all team stuff. It's teams until that very last day.
absolutely.
We've got a new special pairing on the last day for you, by the way.
Oh, here we go.
Now,
I think I can pick this one here, Cam.
when are you going to talk to Freddie and also the Shark and make sure that Tiger plays Adam Scott in the singles on the last day? When do you put that call in?
I'm sure it's something that they'll be thinking about. I mean, they did it in 2009. They put Tiger and YE against each other to a rematch of the PGA Championship.
PGA. That's right.
Where YE beat Tiger in the PGA Championship that year. So, I mean, I'm sure it'll be something that those guys discuss.
Tell us, sorry, Cam, just while we're on it, because we know the way the captains pick in the Ryder Cup and the way the captains pick in the President's Cup slightly different, isn't it?
Yep.
The Ryder Cup, they just put players in holes and they match up.
Yep.
But in the President's Cup, they can actually talk to each other. They can put player against each other.
Absolutely have the opportunity to do that on any day. So I mean, they sit across the table from each other. They sit in the interview room and they're going to be, Greg goes first and he picks Adam Scott.
Yeah.
Fred can go next and pick Tiger Woods, or and then
they can actually
go back and forth.
They can put them together.
Yep. They have an idea of when they want to put them out.
Are you going to be in that room, Matt?
I'll be in the room watching. I'll be in the room watching, so I won't have anything to do with it. So.
You've kept it fairly low key when we were talking just then about Adam Scott and Tiger Woods, but you must be now, after last weekend, secretly hoping that it does pan out that way.
That'd be pretty exciting. I think everybody would love to see it. Everybody would love to see it, but I mean. There's so many great matches. There's so many great matches.
Yeah. It's all going to die down.
There'll be a new controversy soon.
There will not be. There are not too many controversies in golf.
No, there's not.
Not at all.
Hey, we've had an email, boys, and I know that you two love it, and we've had an email from Matthew, who is new. He's played golf. He's played golf for the last 5 years, but has never really got into the President's Cup. He was on YouTube recently just having a look around at some of the highlights, and he would love to know what are your memorable moments and your best moments, maybe to have a look and get excited about some of the past action. Looking forward to this one.
Let me go first. My most memorable moment was when Craig Parry was playing with Shigeki back in 1998. And Craig Parry tells the story, and I've heard him talk about this privately. But Shigeki doesn't know how to play Royal Melbourne. I mean, he just came from a Japanese tour,
He went 5-0
tour. I know, unbelievable. But he basically, Craig just said, I tell you where to hit it, you hit it. And apparently Shigeki goes, yes, sir, and did a little bow, right? A little bow. This is how Craig Parry tells the story. Says, I tell you where to go, you hit it there. And apparently Shigeki goes, yes, sir, Mr. Parry. It's true. This is actually how it happened. Anyway,
well, it worked.
For the whole week it happened, but to see Craig Parry chip in on one of those holes together and to see Shigeki come up and give Craig Parry a big hug was just fantastic. That's my greatest memory of the President's Cup. I can imagine Shigeki doing that. Come on, Matt, what's your number one?
I mean, there's so many, but I would say the event in South Africa, the 2003 President's Cup that ended in a tie. Tiger and Ernie going 3 holes of extra in a playoff to decide who was going to win it, and they went shot for shot, putt for putt, and they ended up calling it in darkness as a tie. So I mean that was
what they holding birdie putts in the dark, long ones.
That was huge
to keep it going.
It was huge. The putts that they had in that last hole, the third hole. I mean, Tiger made a 15-footer, and then Ernie stepped up and made a 9-footer that was in the dark.
In the dark.
It says Tiger.
That pressure to go through that is quite something. That's probably the most I've ever felt it anyway. It could come down to a putt, which it did.
Tiger knew it. He started running to the hole. So fast. That's as it should be.
Rather than U.S. retaining the Cup, we share the Cup. I think that's marvelous. Then it was very different thing.
It was the most special event I've ever been involved in.
It ended up in just the most perfect way possible. It was more than a game of golf that week. It was something very, very special.
You'll never see anything like that happen with the President's Cup again because we changed the way that we don't put it on 2 guys to try to win the Cup.
The pressure.
The pressure. There's not going to be. But for TV and for the event and. It was unbelievable. And the overall event, just 2003, the playoff was awesome. It was most memorable experience I've ever had. But just that event in South Africa, to be down there, golf was very new, big on the scene, and just what we did for the South Africa and the development of golf down there, I think, with the Presidents coming was fantastic.
Massive. And they were number 1 and 2 in the world at the time.
Yeah.
They were that was the rivalry. It wasn't Tiger and Phil. It was Tiger and Ernie was the rivalry when all that stuff really took place. You couldn't have got a bigger situation with 2 better players playing, and the 2 captains had to pick who was going to be in the playoff for the rest of their.
They put their names in an envelope at the beginning of the day. They put them in an envelope, and they both didn't know who they put in. And then at the end of the day, when it's finished as a tie, they pull out those envelopes and say, "Okay, Tiger Woods, Ernie Els."
Now that's the course in South Africa. That's on an old airport, or
yeah,
is that right?
It was Fancourt, Links at Fancourt, that Gary Player designed golf course. Very long. It was 600
it looked
yards
great on TV.
Or something like that.
It looked unbelievable. And when they said it was on an old airport, I mean, airports are flat, and to see that place, I mean. They must have manufactured the entire, fence inside the fence line were mounted.
They did it all without bulldozers or it was all just bringing in dumpsters and dumping it,
and let the wind do its job.
And just moving it around with small tractors. But
incredible
shovels and the rest of it. Matt, 92 days to the President's Cup. All roads lead through the clubhouse all across Australia. We're getting more and more excited. And got to say, we spoke to Mark Hayes last week, and he spoke about an article he did in Melbourne's Herald Sun on Michael Jordan, and it was an excellent article. It just gets people, even if you're not totally 100% into golf, excited about the tournament on the back of the personalities that are going to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, we're very excited about that. So, Michael coming down is going to be unbelievable.
You know what I'm going to do next week?
No.
I'm going to call Craig Parry. And what are you laughing about?
We want to get him on here?
I'm going to call Craig Parry, and he is going to tell us about that week, because you blokes don't believe that happened. I'm telling you it happened.
Let's get
Paz on, and he will tell us about that story next week.
You know what I love about that story, Matt, is he says Craig Parry tells his privately Then he goes on a radio show that broadcasts across the country
Well, that's
and
what
lets it
happens.
known.
That's what happens. That's what happens in this world.
One thing
Bad
that we
luck.
didn't talk about, I just want to mention is just Tim Clark coming on as the captain's assistant. So I mean, I think it's pretty good.
Especially when he's number 9 in the standings at the moment.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just an injury that's kept him out. He's going to have surgery on his, or he has had surgery on his elbow, I think. And I mean, you watch this film that's on behind us. Greg always talks about his little bulldog and Tim Clark, and what Tim Clark did. I don't know, that another memorable moment, that match that he had, singles match versus Zach Johnson last year at the 2009 event. I mean, those guys. I think Zach Johnson probably shot 64.
Yeah,
and
got rolled.
And he was probably 6 under through, or 7 under through 14 holes, and he got beat.
Yeah, unbelievable. No, he's a freak.
I mean, he is. I mean, the way he played, the way both those guys played.
Craig Spence, who was on my program again, I hate to keep on saying it, but Chasing Birdies on Wednesday night, he came on, he was telling us about Tim Clark, because he played a lot of practice rounds with Tim Clark. He was telling us that back in 2000 when Craig was on tour, he said he was getting his wrist worked on then, and then when he got to know him a little bit, I mean, he's been playing in pain for a long, long time, and it's got to the extent where he can't actually move the wrist, and it's now he kind of helps him. I mean, he can't hit the ball very far, but he can't hit it offline either, and when, from a coach's perspective, you watch Tim Clark play, it's not the greatest swing we've ever seen, but gee, it repeats over and over and over. And once he gets that little wand going, well, it's a big wand these days. Once he gets the big wand just sweeping him in, he's a hard man to stop. And as far as playing a man who can play under pressure, he's as good as I've seen. Probably Craig Parry's next.
Yep.
I mean, for guys who just get the job done, those two are just freaks.
Yeah, and great to know he's going to still be involved, even though he can't be able to play out there on the course. Matt, as always, appreciate it.
Thanks,
This time
Cam.
next week, you and Craig Parry and Marco can
We'll be on the phone.
He's throwing him under a bus.
I want to
Maybe
get
I'll tell that
Shigeki as
story.
well.
We'll see
Can we
what
get
he says.
Shigeki as well?
History will be made at Royal Melbourne. Don't miss your chance to be a part of it.